When we explore the idea of life after death, we come across a lot of different beliefs. A big chunk of them support the idea that life does not end with death. Over half of the people in the world see this point of view as more than just an optimistic way to avoid facing what will happen. Being able to understand that existence continues after death is seen as a deep insight. Critics, mostly from secular academic circles, often say that these beliefs are just fantasy, a way to deal with the fear of not existing and an inability to understand what it means to lose consciousness completely. Even if you don't believe in God, you can't help but wonder why people are so quick to rule out the possibility of an afterlife. Even though scientists have learned a lot about the universe, it is still a very mysterious place. Theories from famous philosophers and visionaries make it more likely that our world is a complex simulation made by a more advanced civilization. With this possibility, we can think about death and what comes after it in completely new ways. In this uncertain setting, Dolores Cannon's work and ideas stand out as a possible way to understand what is going on. She was one of the first people to use regression therapy to explore the unknown. The deep research that Cannon has done on past life regressions and the times between lives gives us a unique view of how consciousness stays the same. Her books, like Between Death and Life and The Convoluted Universe, have interesting stories that make us question our usual ideas about life. They suggest that life doesn't end at death, but instead goes through a phase of change that we can't fully understand. When we think about near-death experiences, reincarnation, and other supernatural events, we open ourselves up to ideas that suggest consciousness may live on after death. A background in psychology, especially at a school like the University of Northampton with its unique parapsychology department, opened my eyes to a lot of cases that don't make sense. I'm still not sure if these stories and Cannon's philosophical explorations fully convince me that there is an afterlife. However, they do show that consciousness may survive death. In the search for knowledge about what happens after death, Thomas Clarke's philosophical argument gives us a deep look, pointing to a type of reincarnation that is not personal. At its core, this idea says that consciousness might live on in some way after death, which is an interesting idea that fits well with what we've learned and experienced from Dolores's work, but in a different way. Death, nothingness, and subjectivity. Clarke's essay questions the scientific and secular view that death ends in a void of non-experience or nothingness. He shows a mistake in this way of thinking by saying that the hope of falling into an endless, good nothingness is illogical. Cannon's work includes stories about past lives, spiritual realms, and planning for the future before birth. Clarke's argument, on the other hand, doesn't make any assumptions about what consciousness is or how it might be able to go beyond material conditions. It gives a logical framework that says that if we don't think of death as a plunge into nothingness, then we might still be able to have a lasting conscious experience. Clarke and Cannon, each from a different field, question the materialist view of death by suggesting that consciousness lives on after we die physically. This look into the philosophical foundations of immortality, along with evidence from regression therapy, adds to the conversation about what it means to exist and what might be beyond death. Clarke's argument and what it means make it clear that this philosophical inquiry into the nature of consciousness and its possible immortality opens up new ways to think about our lives and the continuity of consciousness that lasts forever. This made-up situation really shows what personal subjective continuity is all about. The change from Alex Classic to Alex 2.0 shows that consciousness keeps a thread of continuity that ties our experience together even when it changes. Clarke says that this continuity means something very important. Just like Cannon's ideas about the soul's journey through different lives and realms, our consciousness is strong and can last through changes and transitions. Imagine if Alex's life pause brought about such big changes that they made him into a completely different person. Let's call this person Alex Prime. The Alex that wakes up in this version has completely different memories, tastes, and even looks. It makes you wonder Is Alex Prime's mind the same as Alex Classic's, or has something fundamentally changed? From Alex Prime's point of view, the change feels just as smooth as it did for Alex 2.0. This makes me think that our conscious experience might not be as connected to who we are now and our memories as we think. In essence, it suggests that the basic structure of consciousness itself has a continuity that goes beyond individual lives and identities. Similar to Canon's work, this idea fits with the idea that our souls go through different bodies, each with its own set of experiences and lessons, but they stay the same. People who go through regression therapy often remember lessons and themes from past lives that go beyond a single lifetime. This supports the idea of an eternal consciousness. Beyond the physical limits of our present existence, consciousness exists in some form, according to both Clarke's philosophical research and Canon's empirical findings. This continuity of consciousness can be seen through the lens of philosophy or regression therapy. It opens up a lot of ways to understand what it means to be human. By adding the ideas of death and rebirth to this argument, we come across a philosophical claim that challenges our usual ideas of who and what we are. If the change from Alex Classic to Alex Renewed, which includes death and the birth of a new consciousness, maintains subjective continuity, then it suggests that there is a basic and universal fabric of awareness that all conscious experience is based on. This idea, even though it's vague, fits with the teachings and experiences of many spiritual traditions around the world, including those that Dolores Cannon writes about. Cannon told stories about souls that go through many lives, bodies, and experiences, but keep their core essence. Using Clarke's argument as a guide, these stories suggest that consciousness could indeed carry over from very different lives, supporting the idea that we are more than our bodies and this life. The change from life to death and back to life is not a series of separate events, but a continuous flow of awareness that mirrors the way the universe works, which is in cycles. From this point of view, we should think about how we relate to life, death, and the idea of identity. It encourages us to stop seeing ourselves as separate people navigating a limited life and start seeing ourselves as important threads in the tapestry of a much bigger, more connected reality. Realizing that our consciousness might not only live on after we die, but also in different forms forever in the universe, is both humbling and empowering. As we become more aware of the essence that unites us all, it becomes easier to understand and connect with others. This idea of generic subjectivity says that all conscious beings are essentially the same. It says that every moment of awareness, whether in happiness or pain, is a note in the symphony of universal consciousness. It changes the way we think about life and death by showing them as points on a continuous spectrum of being instead of two opposite states. In this view, death is not the end, but a change in the way consciousness works that keeps the cycle of experience going. Since consciousness is the only thing that stays the same, the many forms it takes, from human to non-human to extraterrestrial, are just expressions of its infinite potential. This point of view makes us think about what it means to be self-aware, to have empathy, and to be connected to all other living things. Realizing that our main identity is consciousness has huge moral implications. Because of this, we are forced to feel empathy for others beyond the limits of our own identities, and to see the value in all of our conscious experiences. This knowledge can change the way we relate to other living things, creating a bond of family and mutual respect that goes beyond species, time, and space. By accepting this bigger version of who we are asked to face the whole range of conscious experiences and see how we are all vulnerable and have the potential to be happy. It asks us to be kind and smart, understanding that the well-being of one is connected to the well-being of all. We are on the verge of a new paradigm as we think about the arguments and insights of people like Clarke and Dolores. From this point of view, we can get past our fears and self-interest and learn more about our place in the universe. It shows us a picture of hope and unity, and reminds us that we are never really alone in the vastness of consciousness. According to Daniel Kolak's definition of open individualism, the idea of separate selves is an illusion. This leads us to a revolutionary view of life. According to this viewpoint, the essence of who we are is not dependent on our unique identities, but rather is a single, continuous thread of awareness that permeates all living things in the universe. It goes against the common belief that life is made up of separate minds. Instead, it suggests that there is a basic level of awareness that all of us share. Nuclear fusion is a single process that powers all the stars in the universe. Similarly, this single principle of awareness shines a light on all the different kinds of conscious experiences. This realization breaks down the walls of separation we've built around ourselves and shows us a deep unity that lies beneath all of life's apparent differences. Such a view has a lot of effects, going beyond philosophical ones and into the spiritual and moral ones as well. Knowing that we are all parts of a single, universal consciousness changes not only how we feel about death, but also how we feel about life itself. When we realize that we are all expressions of the same basic awareness, it makes us think about how we treat other people and the natural world. It makes us think about the ways that inequality and division have been a part of human societies for a long time, and urges us to live in a more caring and connected way. However, accepting that we are conscious is more than just a philosophical exercise. It changes how we live our lives and interact with the world around us in real ways. Realizing that we are fundamentally the same as all other conscious beings drives us to work for a world where everyone can experience the most joy and fulfillment, and where suffering is kept to a minimum. This moral imperative doesn't come from naive optimism, but from a deep understanding of how our lives are connected. Knowing that the well-being of one is connected to the well-being of all makes us want to be kind and responsible. In a world where consciousness is our main identity, seeking well-being becomes a group effort, a journey we all take together to reach the fullest potential of our lives. As we think about what open individualism means and how we are conscious beings, we are asked to accept a view of reality that goes beyond the limits of individual selfhood. Our shared destiny is a vision that drives us toward a future where kindness, understanding, and working together are the most important things in our lives. When we understand that we are all connected, we not only find comfort in life's problems, but also motivation to make the world a better place for everyone. On this deep journey of thinking about life and consciousness, the journey doesn't end when physical life ends. Death is more of a profound transition that changes how we think about what it means to live. People usually think of death as the end, but the idea that consciousness stays with us and changes instead challenges this idea. Philosopher Thomas Clark says that death is more like a radical refreshment of subjectivity than its annihilation. This idea of a continuation of awareness in forms and experiences that haven't been thought of yet is similar. This point of view changes the moral landscape and urges people to rethink how they treat all conscious beings. It urges us to live a more caring and fair life, understanding that hurting and unfairly treating consciousness, whether it's human or not, is unacceptable. From this point of view, the goal should be to lessen suffering and increase happiness and contentment for all living things. It takes away the reasons for punitive harm, speciesism, and any other kind of prejudice that comes from thinking that people are different. As we think about these things, we are asked to think about not only what consciousness is and how it can live forever, but also what moral duties come from this knowledge. When we realize that we are deeply connected to all living things through consciousness, we are compelled to act with more compassion and responsibility, working to ease suffering and promote happiness for everyone. Death, consciousness, and how to treat all sentient beings in an ethical way are still being talked about. In this conversation, the limits of what we think we know are pushed, and we are asked to think about the many other ways that life could be. As we try to figure out these tricky philosophical issues, let's have a deep conversation about the many effects of our shared consciousness and the duties it gives us. This look into consciousness and what it means for morality, life, and death is an invitation to become more aware and accept the unity that exists behind everything. By learning more about how we are all conscious beings, we can work to make the world more like the kind of place that requires compassion, respect, and the connection that comes from knowing this. We can keep working together to figure out the mysteries of consciousness and how it affects our lives and the universe as a whole. Don't forget to subscribe and think about how you can help this journey. Your participation will help keep this journey into the deepest parts of reality and consciousness going.